But no, it wasn't. It wasn't bad in my ears.
Oh, good, good. Well, I'm really excited to be able to talk to you today. Because I've been on Maui about 24 years, and I've been aware of your presence and the power and the ability you have to really help people out in their musical field, and it's such a great gift. So
Thank you.
I think it's really probably interesting for people to hear a little bit about your background to find out how you got to the point you're in right now. Of course, I'm talking with Jon de Mello, who's CEO of Mountain Apple, and of course the producer of Brother Is, and we're going to be talking about Brother Is's birthday coming up on May 20th, and a little of the history that has led this particular artist to be such an important influence throughout the world.
Happy birthday, Israel.
Happy birthday, Israel.
Pre-happy birthday.
Yeah, well, you first of all, your background, you have quite an amazing heritage that you have been born into. You're what, fifth generation Hawaiian?
Fifth generation in Hawaii. I have no Hawaiian blood, but fifth generation here, Portuguese. We arrived from the Azores about 1883.
Wow.
And a family of about 12 people, and lived on the big island of Hawaii. And I do have a neat musical heritage. My great-great-grandfather had an ukulele under his arm when he arrived, and it wasn't the first one by any means, but in Hawaii. But he played, and he played different little stringed instruments and such. And my father was an orchestrator in the 50s and 60s and beyond. He just celebrated his 95th birthday, and I can't keep up with him. He drives me nuts. He's an encyclopedia of information. He's done so much in his life. He's had such a full life, and he's I built a studio. He lives in Las Vegas. I built a studio in his house, and he writes a song every day.
Not really.
Yeah, and because he's 3 hours ahead of us, when I wake up in the morning, there's an MP3 waiting for me to hear.
What kind of music is he writing?
Anything and everything. He's so diversified in his mind, and he reads like a banshee. Just anything that's printed, he keeps up with all newspapers, everything. He'll be watching the news or something on television, basketball, and it'll go to a station break, and he'll hear a tune within a commercial, and he'll get a paper towel and just sketch a stanza and put a couple of notes down, and he'll put it in his pocket. Next morning, that's the song he writes. He'll write a whole concerto around a 15-second commercial that he heard on television.
So does he consult with you and say, how would you arrange this? How would you do this? Does he kind of just get the muse and put it down and then let you help kind of make it into something?
God, it's the other way around.
Really?
He does it, and then I go, how did you do that? And teach me, and such like that. He was born in 1916, a year before the Queen died.
Wow.
Okay, and he learned at 5 years old. He and his only brother were trumpet players, and they started at 5 years old. And by the time they were 18 and 19, and even at 10, he was touring the United States. He played with John Philip Sousa Band as a guest star, one shot, and he played with military bands. He played with, he traded musical lessons, 12 lessons. He was in the military for about a year when he was 20 years old. And he's had some eyesight problems. He's never had the best eyes in the world, but you could never tell. And he came out of he got in the military, and the CO of the whole thing, the commanding officer, said, "What do you want to do? We know you have a musical background. Can you glue our marching band together? They can't march or play." And he did that for a year and became good friends with the commanding officer. And the officer realized he had an eyesight problem, and with just one eye. That was all. It was just a little. There was a sweet spot in it. That's basically. And he let him out of the Army. And right after that, he in San Francisco, Igor Stravinsky calls him and said, I understand you're a young man and you know all about marching bands, and I'm trying to build some music around a marching band, and I don't know what I'm doing. And my father says, I would love to learn some orchestration in a classical vein, which I know already, but I'd rather. And Stravinsky says, I'll trade you 12 lessons, 6 for you, 6 for me.
Oh my gosh, what an opportunity.
What an opportunity.
He got to actually learn from Stravinsky.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he has these stories that are remarkable. He used to sit in front of a music stand and a piano, and they'd put a blank manuscript out, and right at the top of the manuscript, Igor would always, or Mr. Stravinsky, I should say, not Igor, he would write sense of purpose. And my dad never realized what that meant till the last lesson, and he finally said, what is this sense of, you always write that at the top. Is that the name of the piece we're doing? And Stravinsky said, no. Sense of purpose means that the notes have to relate to each other. They have to fit. They have to have a feeling, and there has to be a purpose to what you're organizing on paper. And so
what a wonderful lesson.
What unbelievable lesson with a very mighty 20th century. Igor Stravinsky was born about 1880 something, and lived quite deeply into the 20th century.
I believe it was him in that Fantasia
yes.
movie that when Walt Disney showed that beautiful opening scene of the conductor lit with the shadow. That was Igor Stravinsky.
Yeah, amazing.
Conducting the orchestra, of course, and he had that presence there. If you were to take that powerful lesson that your father learned from Mr. Stravinsky, if you were to write on the letterhead of Mountain Apple Records, sense of purpose, what would you say Mountain Apple's sense of purpose is?
Well, I'm deeply and always have been totally in love with this paradise we call home. Okay, Hawaii is such a interesting place. I'm deeply in the history of it. I've done a lot of reading and a lot of research on it. So my sense of place is Hawaii. Now I make other kinds of music. I do all kinds of music. Matter of fact, myself personally, I'm a piano player, and there's all sorts of different things I do. But if I were to say the sense of purpose for Mountain Apple Company is to hold on and perpetuate the island music. Now, it has moved past the word Hawaiian music. Mm-hmm. It is more Hawaiian island contemporary, you name it. I mean, we are influenced, and we always have been, in this little isolated piece of land in the middle of the ocean. We've been influenced by every other culture in the world. Mm-hmm. Okay, but we have this little Mecca thing, and we pull things like Roland Cazimero and Robert Cazimero. Worked with them for 38 years. We've done almost 40 albums together. And if you ask Roland who his favorite guitar player is, he'd say without blinking an eye, Jimi Hendrix. Mm-hmm. And if you close your eyes while you listen to them, you can almost hear some of Hendrix in Roland's music. Now you ask Robert who his favorite musician is, he says Perry Como, because he's a crooner, he's a singer, Robert, okay? He's a bass player too, but he sings. Uh-huh. So all of these people, these mainland people, these international people, have influenced us and made us add things to the Hawaiian part of what we organize musically.
And I guess Jake Shimabukuro is kind of a perfect example of someone who's been able to take these amazing influences and then feed them back and filter them back to the world and inspire many others.
A perfect example. Okay, a perfect example. Okay, so that's the sense of purpose, the cultural thing. Now, I do not dance hula. I do not know a tremendous amount of hula, but I am surrounded by hula, and I do know what is right and what is wrong in a lot of cases. And that, too, is so much part of the culture. The music and the hula move together, okay? And that would be the sense of purpose, is to try to maintain a certain quality level, a certain basic of tradition, and also a forward look at it.
Well, I think that one of the key words you said there that has been so valuable to the Hawaiian music scene is also the forward look, because there has always been, an honoring and a huge sense of purpose in the Hawaiian community to hold the traditions forth. But at the same time, as you well know, as a person who left Hawaii and went to San Francisco and learned a lot about other cultures as well, and learned musically about what works and doesn't, and came back, and as many others did and came home, they realized that even though you can honor your roots and tradition, there has to be some doorway where you can continue to grow and inspire and reach the rest of the world as well.
Right.
And that is really an interesting position to be in, where you want to have great respect, but at the same time, you also want to be able to be cutting edge and to grow.
Right, exactly.
And there's a risk involved in everything.
Sure is.
I mean, you actually, when you met Brother Is, and when you knew Brother Is, but when he asked you to produce him as a solo artist, I mean, you had to realize there was a huge amount of risk for him, and he was taking a big risk himself at that time.
He called me from the hospital. He was in Queens Medical Center, and he said, "Can you come up talk to me?" And I said, "Of course, Israel. No, of course." And so I went up, and we had his room was full. It's like a party up there. When we say hospital, we start trembling. Okay, you and me as real people, okay? But Israel, when you said hospital, it was the Four Seasons Hotel, okay? Because he was waited on hand and foot. He had, food. He had nurses. He had a buzzer in his fingers. He could just get anything. And I went to the hospital, and the room was full, and he shooed everyone out and closed the door, and we talked for almost 6 hours probably, okay? And the first 4 of those hours, I was trying to talk him out of what he wanted to do, which is break away from the Makaha Sons and make a record with me. I was trying to really talk him out of that, and it was impossible. Israel had his own focus, his own mind,
and his own sense of purpose, I guess.
And his own sense of purpose, and he had interesting ways of timing things. Okay, and I look back, that was 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and I look back at the timing and stuff that none of us could see at the time, and realize that Israel had this magic little spirit thing that just covered him and guided him. He was a very spiritual person. He was crazy. He was naughty. He was everything you could put. But there, he also was very in tune and very bright and very, very funny. Anyone that knows him, knew him, or met him for the first time, never forgets this man. He's so on it, funny, quick, clever. I used to call him the fastest man on earth, and he used to giggle with his little giggle. Okay, I said, you can get across the room from that side of the room over to here faster than anyone I could ever imagine. And he used to giggle about that, because the fastest man alive, and he was with his tongue and everything. He was just quick, and jokes. He would tell jokes, and he was just an interesting spirit. And it was a risky move for him at that time, and even at this time, it would be a risky move for anyone, to do with that. He had a 17-year relationship with these gentlemen, and he just wanted to move on, and I was the first to say you're crazy, Israel. You are a part of a staple of Hawaii. You are a part of something that is, it's, as I call it, the crazy glue that holds us all together. Music, okay. It permeates all of our lives every day. Music. You're a part of Makaha Sons, so But again, he just would look at me and say, "No, we're going to do this," and finally, I just said, "Okay, let's go. Let's do it."
As a producer, I think probably I'm hearing you talk about your father, and I'm hearing you talk about Brother Is, and I'm seeing in a way how you have to be able to interpret their vision and their muse.
Yes.
And honor this amazing, well, I guess it's a genie in a bottle of sorts.
Yes.
And honor it and be true to it, but at the same time know how it works enough to interpret it and make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the sensitive part. Some producers can bulldoze right over an artist, but that is not really my technique. My technique is to, I always tell the artists when I first meet them and interview them and stuff like that. Now, Israel, I knew we didn't go through interviews because we knew each other so well. But I would always tell him that, you are going to make the decisions, and I'm going to make suggestions. If I think you're going to the left too far, I'm going to point back the other way, okay? And you're going to make the decisions. And I always tell the artist that I will work the way you work. Don't try to morph into my way of working, because I'm the producer. I'm just going to sit and try to pull this stuff out of you, and in a fashion that is respectfully you and yours, and it works better. In the end, the music's better. Okay, I've seen force-fed artists that come out of the experience saying, "I'll never do another CD again. That was just an awful experience," But then I've seen people that work with, and some of them are tyrants. Some of them just beat the artists up terribly, But and there are times when all of us, all producers, have to lean up and put a little pressure on the artist. But there's ways of doing that, and there's polite ways of doing it. And being born and raised in the islands, we know the polite way. It's the aloha way. Okay, it's a real simple thing for us. And it's interesting, going to New York or traveling around the world or in Europe or something like that, just to see and to really firsthand get a grip on what the aloha spirit is. It's a very tangible item, even though it was an ad person that made it up in the 40s or something, probably. Aloha spirit. That sounds good. Let's try that. It definitely exists. We are friendly, everything. In fact, I can give you the best example. The aloha spirit exists in all of us, and it shows every day because we cannot merge into a freeway. No one knows how to merge properly in a freeway because it's aloha spirit. Oh, no, go. You go first. You go first. Go. You go first.
It's so true. It's so true. I just went back and visited L.A. for the Grammys, actually, and I had such a hard time after being away for a while trying to merge on the freeway. I'm going, oh my gosh, I've forgotten what it's like when you have to deal with this.
When you're going to merge, you don't know how to merge.
I know.
Over here.
I know exactly. Well, there's a term that came to my mind trying to almost picture you with Is on that first release, and there had to be a kind of vision, I guess, that he must have had, and it's kind of interesting in a way because throughout time, a lot of times, a wonderful artist's first solo release or their first vision of their first dream come true carries a lot of magic in it, and it sometimes really is so special because this is the budding of their dream, and it seems like Facing Future just had all of the elements. I mean, you couldn't have known back then.
No, we didn't. Neither Israel or myself. We didn't. I never know, and I never put that in my mind walking into a studio saying, I'm going to make the best record of my life today. Okay? I just walk in and do my job. And a lot of times walking out, an artist will ask me, this is hoku material, right? Hoku hanu material. I'm going to win a hoku, right? And, that's the farthest thing from my mind, okay? And there was magic. There was magic that happened during Facing Future, And Israel, and I first, when our first session, I gave him a book that was about an inch thick. It was a drawing book, with a black cover. It was a sketch pad. And I said, I want you to go home, and I want you to write down every song you could imagine or like or would want to sing. Okay, anything. I don't care if it's a Russian folk song. Just write it down, okay? And let's just see. And he came back and he called me. He called me about 1:00 that night and said, "I'm still writing in this frickin' book." And he had filled pages up, okay, of songs and such like that. And the next day he showed them to me, and we would just methodically go down them and pick, a number of songs to start recording. And I would always over-record. I would, if there's 10 or 12, it happens to be 14 songs on Facing Future. That's an oddity today. It's normally 10, okay, for a lot of reasons, but 10 songs are about what a CD is now. But when I record, the 13 songs that ended up, we probably recorded 20, and whittled it down to 14 for the CD.
A lot of takes on each track, or?
On some days. Some days when he was tired, it was a few takes, or stopping halfway through and restarting because he missed a verse, or he put a verse in the wrong section, or he played a wrong chord, or something like that. But no, not a whole lot of takes. I mean, if we didn't, my producer etiquette basically is that if we can't get it in 3 takes, we got to move on. You're tired, and it's not happening.
Wow.
Okay.
That's pretty amazing.
And really, the first take is like just a debugging session, a run through, making sure the chords are right, making sure you got the right tempos and the lyrics are correct, and da-da-da-da. The second take we burn off, okay, and then the third one we do for free basically because we either got it or we didn't, and it's so difficult to work on for an artist. They will burn out really fast if they do like 25 takes of each song. It's just overkill.
Yeah.
Now when you get on stage, of a performance, and Israel is a performer, he would never in the middle of a song stop and say, "Oh, I got to start again. I played a wrong chord." You'd never do that on stage. So grip and bear. And with the science we have today at our fingertips, which is nonlinear waveform editing, there are things we can do in this current day that I couldn't do with Israel's album 20 years ago. That there's stuff we can do now that is phenomenal science. But I leave that on the science part. I leave on the back burner until the very end. I do not walk into a project knowing, I can fix that in the mix. I can fix that with science. I can do that. Oh, no, let that go. I can fix that. Let that go. Never mind. I can fix that. I don't do that. I go in and try to get a performance. But I know well enough if halfway through a really glorious performance and the guitar player has a pick in his hand and he hits the strings a little hard and the pick goes across the guitar and makes a scraping sound. In the old days, you would stop tape, you would back it up to 0, and you'd start it again. But in current day, in the 21st century, that click or pop or snap or wood hit of the guitar can be drawn out of a waveform, and you do not hear it. So we have incredible tools to help us, but it still comes down to the song, the performance, the arrangement, and how you drive it home. Okay.
When you finished that release, Facing Future, and Iz was listening to the final master and everything, and I imagine you were probably there with him, and what was his feeling and what was your feeling about it?
I felt very good because we maintained both of our wish lists. We some of the first questions I ask are, what kinds of things do you want to do? You want to just reproduce the Makaha Sons? And that way, I knew I was going to get a no thank you on that, okay, from Israel. And what we basically both said is we should keep it really simple. We should go back to the root, which is really, he was and is, no pun intended, is a great ukulele player.
Yeah.
He strums an ukulele like no one. He just has a rhythm, a groove that he can get into. And so I really wanted to take it back to its basics and keep it simple. Now, every day when we walked into the studio, we'd look each other in the eyes, and on the phone and stuff, we'd say, we're going to keep it simple, right? Now, we did do some complicated pieces on the album. Like the first hit that was out of Facing Future was Maui Superman. That was all kind of a MIDI digital band at that point. And that was a kind of a Hawaiian song. So there was a little bit of that action in that album. But if you look at the album in its entirety, it's simple. It's straightforward. It's really simple. It's back to basics. It's showing off Israel. I didn't want to do a lot of harmonies around him because he came from that with the Makaha Sons. I wanted to keep his voice, which I thought was a major asset. He besides his ukulele strumming and playing and such, he was an elementary player. He just didn't play in a lot of different keys or a lot of fancy stuff, but boy, could he find the groove with the strum and the element that takes the listener on a voyage. Okay, it's the groove. And years ago, they used to call it, when we had vinyl records, they say it's in the groove.
Yep.
Okay, that's the lingo we used to use.
Yeah.
It's in the grooves or not.
Yep.
That means it's a good song or a bad song.
Or it's groovy.
It was groovy in our day, or my day at least.
In my day too. So when you had this amazing chemistry that occurred with you and him and the release, then some artists at that point go. There's many artists who go, wow, where do you go from here? Where do you continue from here? Or do you just find something that works and stick with it? And again, I guess it comes back to that risk. And when you decided to go in the next direction, in the next few recordings, what was your compass?
My compass on the second album was to even get softer and simpler, okay, and keep it more down to earth. And did for ALA. The opening piece is a big crowd for Onipa'a. That was in 1993, the 100th year anniversary. So ALA, written by Leo Anderson Akana, is a great piece of work and fit Israel, and he was the first to record it. Fit him so well. And so I went down a bit. And then we did a live. He was a great performer, and he would just tear the house apart when he showed up on a stage, And so we did a live album, and we did a couple of other some DVDs, some stories, and a few things like that. And this was while he was, he did feel the success. People often tell me it's just so too bad that he really never felt all the success of the movies and the world success that he's had, and stuff like that. And I tell him, no, he did feel it. It was just the beginning of it, but it was definitely the beginning of the whole process. His first movie was with Zalman King, which was In God's Hands, which they used Hawaii 78 for. Okay, and it was an underwater scene. It was breathtaking. It was beautiful. And so he felt that. He was alive and well and lived through that one. And we were negotiating Meet Joe Black, and that was already picked. Martin Brest, the director, had already picked it and said, I have to have this. I don't care what it takes. I have to have this. This is my song. And Israel knew about it, but he died about 3 months before the movie was released.
How did they find that? How did they find him and the music?
There's I ask the same question because I'm always curious on how'd you find this? Where'd you get this? Where'd you buy it? Did you buy it? Did you steal it? Somebody give it to you? What happens? I'm always asking that question of everybody. Okay, and I had the opportunity to ask Mr. King, and he said that he was in one of the coolest and biggest record stores in L.A. called Amoeba, which is a two-story mezzanine kind of record store. I don't even know if it's there anymore. The record business is in ruins right now.
Yeah.
It's awful to watch. But this store was so intense that it had one of everything. I mean, every possible, and they handled both CDs, music, records, video, DVDs, everything. Zalman King said, I walked in there, and it was easy because Amoeba was one of the first ones to have this new technology of you pick up a CD out of where you find it in the little, where you're scrolling through it. You take it over to a listening station, and you swipe the barcode, and you put headphones on, and you can listen to the album. Okay? And they have 100 stations in this store where you can do that. And then you're asked politely just to leave the CD on the counter, and it'll be put back in the proper place by the sales clerks. Okay, so people are just constantly listening, and the cover was the Facing Future cover with his back to you and the big drum and Facing the Future, and that was
was that your idea?
Yes, basically, and I took the photograph, and he was up at Palehua at my studio, and I asked him one day, I said, Israel, you shy about your body? He says, no, I'm not shy. I said, I didn't think so, but I just had to ask you. I said, you want to go out in the yard, take your shirt off, go out in the yard, and let me take some photographs. It's a beautiful day. I went out and took 87 photographs that day, and those are the photographs you see the most of.
Amazing.
Okay. He was about 600 pounds at that point, 640 or so pounds. He got down to about 480 at one point, and he died at 1,000 pounds.
Oh my God! I didn't know that. I didn't
know. Someone about a year ago, if we've ever met, I'm rather small in stature. In fact, I'm very small in stature. I'm 5'3", and 110 with $50 worth of quarters in my pocket. Okay, and someone asked me, he said, "So, does this mean that you were like 1/10 of his body?" I said, yeah, I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, you're right.
Amazing.
In fact, we were in the studio once. This is a great little story. We were in the studio once, and we were just wrapping it up, and one of my cohorts comes by to pick me up or visit me or something, and she's in the control booth, and the engineer's got his head down on the board pushing things and making some adjustments, and she says, "Where's Jon?" And he leans up and points over to Israel and says, "He's over there." And he goes back to his knobs and stuff like that. And says, "I don't see him. Where is he? Where is he?" She couldn't find me. Look, I was missing. Actually, I was sitting behind him, and he was totally shadowing me, okay? So it took her a minute to go out in the studio and find him, and then, oh, there you are. I had an interesting, I have an interesting way of recording and producing. I like very much to sit in the recording room, not in the console where the control booth is. I like sitting right in front of the artist.
Is that something to do with the energy field and actually the chemistry that does literally come out in energy between you and the artist?
That's what I feel. That's what I feel, and it makes them very nervous at first sometimes. Now it made Israel nervous for about 15 minutes. Okay. But then, because he'd always, as he was singing and playing, he would always close his eyes and kind of lean back. But then, he knew what I was doing. I was watching for chord problems or something that was. I had headphones on. I could listen to what he was hearing and all, but I was like 2 feet in front of him, and he'd have his eyes closed, and every now and then he'd open one eye and look down at me like, was that okay? And it was beautiful. It was most of the time it was just perfect. Or I would stop him and say, "No, let's go back and let's punch in at that point and pick it up," and such like that.
Well, looking facing the future from then to now, it is beyond anyone. I'm sure it had to be beyond your dreams and Iz's dreams of the success that happened worldwide. And I think there has to be a little bit of the element of the fact of your business acumen and the fact that you have Mountain Apple and you can, as a hands-on person that you are and as the producer, you can have input as to what happens. As you just kind of mentioned very briefly there, the record industry, the record stores and what's happening with records it's kind of a scary time. Yet here you are. Aren't you considered one of the strongest record companies in the country?
Yes, as an independent record company. I'm not one of the big guys like BMG or RCA or they don't exist anymore. They've all merged. Okay, but as an independent, yes, Mountain Apple is a very strong company, and we show up on the Billboard charts and all that regularly. And I do, and I think it was my father, because my father was extreme left brain, extreme right brain, both. He had both, and he drilled that into me too. So as much as I would like to be set free from the corporate part of what I do, I have to admit that I kind of get off on it a little bit. It's the card game. It's, you know, you don't want to just make music and leave it in your CD player at home. The object of music is to affect people, to change their lives in some way. And so you want to get it, and in the 60s, my father and I had a standing joke, we want to get it beyond the reef.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And you know, and Mountain Apple definitely has.
And now actually changed a lot of the way people perceive of Hawaiian music.
Yes. Sometimes it's scary. Okay, I was with my daughter at the Kahala Resort Hotel on the veranda downstairs having breakfast. Or no, it was an afternoon dinner, and they had 4 traveling musicians going from table to table, and I was sitting at the table with my daughter, just chit-chatting, and I knew the musicians. They knew me, you know, and I know they were across the room going, "Oh my God, there's De Mello. We got to go over there and play him a song," you know. And we don't want to, you know. But they came over and they asked for a song, and I requested one of my favorite songs, and they played it. And it was.
What song was that?
Ho'onanea. I love that song. I think that was the song I requested that night. Ho'onanea. And it's just a beautiful. And they did a very beautiful transition, a beautiful version of it rather, and had a dancer with her and dancer with them, and she danced a little hula. And it was very nice. It was very cool, and it was very what the Hawaii experience should be, you know. And next to us, there was a luau table of a round table that would set 10, and there was probably 14, okay? And it was a whole family from Middle America, okay? It was Tutu, Papa, down to parents, all the children, babies, grandchildren, kids with orange hair, bones in their nose, body piercings, tattoos, everything. It was like the quintessential American family, okay? And they came out of the Midwest somewhere, and this trio turns away from us, goes over the table of 10, and we can hear they're pretty loud. They have high chairs, they have everything over there, and they're feeding. I mean, this is a family that is a serious meal. And the gentleman that's playing the music says, "What would you like to hear?" And the mother racks out of her mouth in a little bit of a southern drawl, "I want to hear my most favorite Hawaiian song by Brother Is, Over the Rainbow."
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I'm looking at my daughter, and I'm going, huh?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So it was like, you know, it was stunning to hear. I want my favorite Hawaiian song to be played, you know?
Yes.
It was like, wow, geez. So that's a little bit of a scary part.
Well,
okay?
I also am out there as a minister doing weddings, and I have to tell you, almost every single person that gets married on the beach, the one song they want to hear the most is Over the Rainbow. And they want to hear Brother Iz's version, and every guitar player who goes out on the beach to play it wants to do it just like that so that they're happy.
Right.
So it is absolutely amazing. And the Nahokus are coming up, of course, and you have how many artists up for Nahokus?
Wow, that's the hardest question you could possibly
I know, it's
ask
1,
me.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, okay, that sounds about right. I was going to say 12 or 13. I'm not sure. You know, I counted it up the other day, and I got a nosebleed.
and even considering the state of the record industry, you, I think, must have learned something from that lesson about how they found Brother Iz's music in Los Angeles, because you have, through Mountain Apple, an amazing system of delivery at all kinds of great stores where visitors visit, and you have kiosks, which is such a brilliant idea, featuring your music at the music stores that are left.
Right.
So people can see them.
Right.
Brilliant marketing.
Right.
Absolutely
We
brilliant.
have to do it. You know, the CD is disappearing, but downloads are not growing at the same speed up.
Right.
Okay. The journals and everyone says that downloads are over. Okay, it's going to be, a Rhapsody or Spotify or the streaming concept. Okay.
Oh gosh, a penny a play.
Yeah, and you can make your own playlist, and they're smart engines. Now you got to realize that you're, with a streaming device, on a smartphone, you go behind a mountain, you're going to lose that signal. You go through a tunnel, you're going to lose that song for a second. Okay, but also for $8 a month, you can subscribe to 15 million songs. So, as I said earlier, the music business is in ruins, and the CDs are disappearing. But we are, at Mountain Apple, we are in a very interesting position. We're in 3 different businesses. We're in the traditional music business, CDs, records, or any kind of recorded material and stuff like that. But we also are in the souvenir business in Waikiki. Okay? Now, I don't believe that these visitors are going to want to buy a little, plastic credit card with a number on it, with a picture of Diamond Head, to take home to their somebody for a souvenir and say, hey, go to iTunes and download this number and you get this album. Okay? We've tried it, and it doesn't seem to work. They want the pictorial, the 5x5 CD with the history and the whole thing and what the songs are. They want to feel it.
That's right, and they want to see it.
Right, they want to see it. They don't want a little icon on their screen. It doesn't represent anything.
I totally agree.
So we're in the visitor market.
Yep.
And we also have an exclusivity on the military. Okay, and oddly enough, when these big ships come to town for a leave, like an aircraft carrier goes across our horizon, I get all my girls in the office to go over to the windows and bow down. These guys, there's almost 6,000 people on an aircraft carrier. These guys get off and they go to the PX, as we used to call it, and you'd think they would buy the latest Rihanna and the latest top 10 out of, they've been out of sea for 6 months. They want it all. They do buy Rihanna, and they do buy the top 10, okay? But they also just go right across the board and buy everything Hawaiian, okay? Because I guess, in my best of my mind, can say that they want to prove that they were here, and it's a souvenir. They're taking it back to their families.
That's right. And when they are there, when the people hear it, wherever they take it back to, they can feel that aloha. They can feel that spirit. They can remember, because the power of music takes them right back into that energy.
Yep, the most powerful language in the world.
It is the most powerful language in the world, and you have done such an amazing job of persevering enough where you can preserve it. And I guess we go back to that wonderful heritage you got when Igor Stravinsky and your father set a sense of purpose, because that sense of purpose has brought a lot of amazing gifts of great music to the world.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I'm very proud of what we have accomplished at Mountain Apple. It's a crazy world, and all I want to make is things that make you smile and happy. Okay.
And music makes people happy.
It truly does. It touches all of us. Okay.
Yep. It is wonderful, and it's a great gift. And I thank you so much for such a generous amount of your time. And sharing all these great stories. I just really feel like I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Much more.
Israel was so much fun to work with that, I can go on with stories with him, but all the rest of the wonderful people. I've been gifted into working with almost every entertainer in the islands on one level or another.
That's true.
Okay. And it's a wonderful gift, and I love what I'm doing. It drives me crazy sometimes, just like your job.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else's job.
Right.
But it is what we're here on this planet to do something, and it's something that should be good,
Yeah.
And
well, you're cultivating that field for the future generations as well, so that's a wonderful heritage and gift that continues to live on.
I hope so.
Well, thank you so much, Jon de Mello. I really appreciate your time, and we'll be looking forward to maybe in the future talking to you again and maybe doing a review of the Nahokus and where you see everything going from here. So thank you so much, and a big aloha.
I look forward to it, Cindy.
Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.